Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is my weekly live webcast. And we have a fairly packed show for you today, actually. Well, the first story is quite an interesting one because we're going to look at whether or not the EU are actually reversing their ban on ICE engines. Um, excuse me. In France, two gendarmes have been charged with swerving into a French rider. 3,000 drivers have been caught using ghost plates in 2 weeks. We're using some new cameras, apparently. Tesla claims their self-driving cars will be on Dutch roads by February. The government says there's no such agreement. UK and world news in brief will follow that. Then we'll have a look at some bike news. So I'll have a look at Armour Vision visor tear-off replacements. We'll have a look at some Oxford Atlas packing cubes to organise your luggage. KTM and Husqvarna have recalled the 390 powered range. MV Agusta, they aim apparently to shift downwards from the premium end of the market. BBM, their new Hiro e-moto is said to charge to 80% in just 15 minutes. What else we got? Phelon and Moore. The manufacturers of the legendary Panther are back with a new Chinese-built range. We'll have a quick look at one of their bikes. And Moto Morini have rebirthed their Kanguro. We'll take a look at that too. And Benda, finally, they've shown off a hybrid boxer twin, and it's a concept bike, but it's certainly a bike that's of some interest. Before we look at the sort of in-depth item today, it's a fairly short one actually, where Continental will explain what a vegan-friendly tyre might be. Whether you really want to bother with a vegan-friendly tyre, I have no idea. But anyway, there we go. That's what's in today's show. Let's start, as I usually do, by talking about some things I've found over the last few days interesting. Now, I fielded a question from Peter last week about searching my coffee posts archive, and I suggested using the built-in Windows text search via the Control F key combination to, search for a particular keyword. I said I thought there was a similar option on the Mac, and indeed Nick helpfully let me know there is. It's Command F if you happen to be on the dark side of computing. Now, I'm always happy to see the message of science of being seen being spread wherever it actually gets the message over. If it helps a few riders understand a little bit more about just how the Smidsy crash happens, all well and good. And if it helps them understand a little bit more about what they can do to protect themselves, all well and good. So bit of a thumbs up here then to a video entitled "Why Drivers Don't See Motorcycles: The Psychology Behind the Smidsy." It's on YouTube. It's a rather good 4-minute summary actually of many of the topics I do cover it in Science of Being Seen at greater length. So if you want a very quick summary, check it out here. Perhaps I ought to do something similar myself. Anyway, link's gone up on the screen for you. And what else have we got for you today? Well, last time out, I was talking about median crash barriers. Now, somehow what I said got misinterpreted, and it triggered a comment. I think it was from Terry in New Zealand, and he said, "I'm quite surprised to hear someone as savvy as you more or less climb on the cheese grater, bacon slicer bandwagon in respect of trumpeting perceived or actual hazard to motorcyclists. The use of emotive phrases such as these seldom advance much in the way of rational analysis on the topic." Now, just to clarify, what I actually said was this, at least this was the script I had written, so my words might have been very slightly different, but what I said was, I've never been a fan of wire rope barriers, even though speaking to experts in the NZTA suggested that they save far more motorcyclists from crossover collisions with vehicles that would have come through the median than cause injuries to riders that hit them. So that is what I actually said. In fact, I was saying that they do save motorcyclists' lives. It still doesn't mean that I fancy riding into one to test the theory that they are not so dangerous if you do. But my bacon slicer remark was actually directed at a very different type of barrier. And let me just zoom in on that to give you a close up. This is actually a close up of the close up. The um, This, as you can see, is a barrier which not only has the unprotected posts, which cause a lot of problems for sliding motorcyclists, but it also has it's comprised of these thin metal strips. Now, it was removed after a year because of issues surrounding failing worlds. But my question was whether or not this barrier had ever been tested with a motorcycle impact. Now, look at those exposed metal edges, particularly where they've bent over in the bottom right of the picture there. They look distinctly rider unfriendly. Now, I did a quick search and I turned up no evidence this barrier was ever tested against motorcycles. If you know different, I asked last time, do drop me a line and let me know. Right, okay, so before I go on, James Rogers is up to his old tricks too. Apparently, Sadiq Khan has issued, quote, a major update over plans to introduce ban for drivers in London. Now, actually, what has happened is that Transport for London has launched a second public consultation on plans to pedestrianise the central section of Oxford Street. So it's TfL, not Sadiq Khan and the mayor. And it's not drivers in London, it is traffic on one very particular street. Whether it's a good idea or not is under debate, but it's a very different story from the headline. Right, okay, so let's move on swiftly to the weather. Now, the bad news is if you are looking for some sunny weather, there will be some around, but there are plenty of poor weather too. There are weather warnings out, so check your local forecasts again. The reason for this is right now there is another area of low pressure bringing wet and windy weather. And this will cross western and northern areas today, but it is staying drier for central, southern, and eastern England. It's actually just clouded over a bit here after a bright start. Now, Monday remains unsettled. There'll be a band of rain. It will linger over Wales and north and west England. So again, lots of rain falling on already saturated ground, so watch out for flooding. Scotland and the southeast will escape mainly dry but cloudy, bright in Northern Ireland. Now, Tuesday sees a swap round. The cloud and patchy rain will move to the south and east, and there'll be brighter spells to the north and west. There'll be some showers in the northwest of Scotland this time. It turns wet and windy once again on Wednesday, blustery rain spreading in from the west. Thursday, more heavy rain spreading in from the west, but this time far northern areas may escape dry. But that far off, it's all a bit hit and miss, so check your forecasts. And so let's get on with some news. Now, the breaking story for this week concerns reports that the EU is ditching the 2035 ban on petrol and diesel vehicles. And I'll be honest, those are reports that have largely been carried by the right wing press. So let's be actually accurate about what's happening. I've had a look around. It's quite complicated, but here is the original plan. From 2035, new cars and vans sold in the EU would have had to achieve a 100% reduction in tailpipe emissions. So it's tailpipe emissions, not just CO2. It also includes NOx and particulates. Now, in theory, I guess it might be possible to build a scrubber that's 100% efficient, but in practice, it was intended as an effective ban on new internal combustion engines. Now, predictably, there was pushback from big automotive companies who wanted to use so-called green fuels. Now, while these might be carbon neutral, firstly, the chances of ever producing these in anything like the quantity needed to power every ICE engine currently on the roads, let alone new ones, is a non-starter. And they don't fix the NOx and particulates problem too, because you're still burning a fuel in air which contains nitrogen, and it will produce carbon bits and pieces, and it will produce nitrous oxide and nitrogen dioxide. Anyway, Germany pushed through a delegated act, and this would have allowed vehicles running exclusively on CO2 neutral e-fuels to be registered after 2035. Now, that exclusively matters. These cars would not have been physically capable of running on fossil fuel. The only thing you could have used would have been these e-fuels. And the move has been supported by high-end manufacturers like Porsche and Ferrari. So what's happened now? Well, the reports say that this is a sort of statement that's been made. Senior figures within the European Commission and the European Parliament, and this appears to be led by the European People's Party. It's currently the single largest political group in the European Parliament. It's broadly centre-right, but it doesn't actually have a majority. It would need support from other parties, but they are apparently ready to drop this 100% figure to a 90% reduction in tailpipe emissions figure if they get the support, obviously. So it's not yet a done deal, as some stories have implied. But should it actually be pushed through the parliament, what it basically does is it reopens the door to continue the production of ICEs, whether they continue to use fossil fuels or whether they are adapted to run on synthetic. All they will have to do is hit this 90% target. So where's the pressure coming from? Well, once again, it's countries with big automotive industries, Germany and Italy in particular, apparently. Not everyone agrees. Volvo have warned that backtracking like this undermines long-term certainty and slows the transition to EVs. So where do motorcycles sit? Well, again, there's no clarity about this, whether the same 90% reduction would be applied to motorcycles. We don't know. It does tend to reinforce the simple truth that powered two-wheelers will remain an afterthought in transport policy. What about the UK? Well, there's obviously no regulatory mechanism that forces the UK to follow what's going on in Europe anymore. But if European manufacturers want to sell in the UK and the UK wants to sell in Europe, then there will necessarily be alignment. I can't see the UK doing anything different to what the EU decides. So long, complicated story there. Let me know what you think about that. Kevin's looked in and Nick's looked in. Good morning. Kevin says he was late. Don't worry, I was 5 minutes late myself due to a phone call which turned up at just the wrong moment. Right. Okay. So what else is in the news? Well, this next story is a fairly disturbing one. It kind of hit social media with almost the violence. I think that the car hit the motorcycle. And what you're seeing there is a sort of side swipe. And two French police officers who were driving this car are in trouble. They are being investigated for this incident because they swerved the car into the motorcycle. This took place on the A4 auto route, caught on CCTV, immediately circulated on social media. Happened back in October. The 37-year-old on the bike managed to regain control, but obviously it went viral, and the rider has filed a complaint for aggravated attempted murder. The two officers in the vehicle, they were taken into custody, and on October 31st, they were released conditionally, but with a ban on working in public. And they were due to face a trial for, quote, intentional violence by persons holding public authority, acting in concert and with an improvised weapon, which has to be one of the longest charges I've ever heard. They were due in court on the 1st of December. I've not yet heard about the outcome, so maybe the case has been adjourned. Anyway, moving on, the police in the West Midlands have said that thousands of drivers are dodging penalty points and fines through using ghost plates. Now, the force tested some state-of-the-art technology, and it's capable of detecting these coated plates, which can allegedly fool some ANPR systems, the sort of things that are fitted to cameras in speed limits, and there's sort of other enforcement cameras that stop you making illegal right turns, that kind of thing, box junctions. Now, they said they caught 4,335 motorists in a fortnight in Birmingham, and of those, 2,961 would likely have gone unnoticed by traditional systems. So presumably they're implying those were using these illegal plates. Now, an all-party political parliamentary group for transport, they have produced a safety report, and they say as many as 1 in 15 vehicles may carry plates designed to evade detection. Maybe cloned, maybe ghost plates, or maybe they say using nothing more sophisticated than cellophane, leaves, or a marker pen. Now, if you've looked at the Birmingham data and thought that's 3 in every 4 vehicles, and you're wondering why the parliamentary group is saying only 1 in 15, don't forget the sample catch was offending vehicles only. They didn't actually check the vehicles which didn't get caught. So I'm guessing that the vast majority of drivers with legal plates don't drive through cameras speeding or doing illegal things, whereas the vast majority of drivers who probably do have the illegal plates are the ones who are trying to escape the fines. Tesla. Talking of rules and fines, Tesla is reportedly seeking approval to fast track its full self-driving technology to European roads, but it has run head-on into regulatory caution. Now, the company says it expects national approval in the Netherlands as early as February 2026. And they say this could open the door to wider European acceptance of the system. Now, Tesla's even been offering supervised sort of ride-alongs in their self-driving vehicles in countries including Germany, France, and Italy to try to build sort of familiarity with the system and support for it. Now, Elon Musk has actually suggested recently that software updates are bringing full self-driving closer to, quote, human removal. And he says those improvements have dramatically reduced critical disengagements, which is a fancy term for the system switching itself off and saying, over to you, mate, to the person behind the wheel. Now, he even suggested that drivers might be able to text under certain conditions, but no system is yet certified for full unsupervised use on public roads. And the Tesla system remains a supervised level 2 assist under those UN ECE rules. And that's far from the hands-free, eyes-off, fully autonomous driving that Tesla continues to imply. Now, Musk's comments have actually drawn rebukes from safety advocates who stress that the technology does not remove the legal responsibility from drivers to oversee the system when driving hands off. Now, the Dutch authorities, they say that there's absolutely no promise of a February approval and that any timeline depends on rigorous safety evaluation. And they've publicly warned that safety, and they say especially around motorcycles and vulnerable road users, I presume they would include cyclists and pedestrians there, must be proven beyond doubt before any approval is granted. However, India and China could become early regions where Tesla's autonomous driving gets fuller acceptance. Chinese regulators are apparently preparing full self-driving approval for Tesla from early 2026. And this is all part of Tesla's global strategy to pressure other companies, other countries to allow their vehicles onto the roads with full self-driving because they are themselves under pressure from rival manufacturers. All right, okay. Just a quick break while I take a swig of my tea. As always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about Elevenses. They can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get all the links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it, when the show's over of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, okay, so what's in the next section of news? Well, UK news and world news in brief. Now, the MCIA, they have said that they fully expected to report heavy declines in the last 2 months of 2025. The November figures are out, because they say over 8,400 units were registered ahead of the Euro 5 phase out. But the bad news, of course, is that the November 2025 figures were significantly down, 24% down, in fact, on last year. And that the total year-to-date market is down 15%. Now, what lies actually unspoken, of course, in that statement is that the reason that all these bikes are on the market now is and had to be pre-registered last year is because they didn't sell last year. They were hanging around in showrooms at the end of the 2024. Anyway, at least footfall at the Birmingham Motorcycle Show was up 10%. Now, one piece of biking good news from the budget: the electric motorcycles and other electric-powered two-wheelers will be 100% exempt from the new 3p per mile road charging that will be introduced on electric cars from April next year. And of course, hybrids will also be charged, but at the rate of 1.5p a mile. So that is just a small benefit towards electric motorcycles. Now, following an incident on December the 1st, in which a man in his mid-90s suffered serious injuries after being hit by a motorcycle on a zebra crossing, Avon and Somerset police are trying to track the rider down who failed to stop. Described as wearing dark clothing, riding a red or orange motorbike. That's not going to help much, really. They want anybody with information or footage. On Tyneside, an off-road biker, man in his 20s, he was seriously injured in a collision with a car on Tuesday the 9th, taken to hospital with serious injuries, but after the collision, his motorcycle was stolen from the scene by two unknown people. Police are looking for help with that particular item. And another bike that's been stolen, rather unusually this time, a man dressed like a KTM mechanic entered the paddock at the last MotoGP round in Spain, broke into Jorge Martin's motorhome, and they stole his custom built Pinarello training cycle. However, he was caught on CCTV and he was traced to his home in Madrid. Now, this picture here is apparently the haul from recent spot checks on illegal e-bikes by the Met. Police from various units in Southampton were similarly targeting high-powered e-bikes and e-scooters back at the end of November, and they said they seized a dozen of them, but they also made multiple arrests for drugs offences, presumably from the people using them, and there were two uninsured car drivers who were also picked up. They did recover two stolen motorcycles, one intact, but the other was burned out. Right, okay, another quick break. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my Ko-fi pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, you get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Skills ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a one-off supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cuppa as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy. Right, so over some news about bikes, accessories, biking technology generally. Now, it's not often I see a product that seems totally new to me. Someone will probably now tell me I've been living under a rock, but have a look at this. It's the Armour Vision visor. Now, it's billed as an eco-friendly alternative to tear-offs, which I believe have actually been banned in some competition. It's a visor protector that's, quote, been tested in the world's toughest conditions. It's apparently got a hydrophobic layer which should repel water and also the grime stuck in the water, of course. And it's said to feature unmatched durability that stands up to wire wool testing. I doubt that's your usual visor cleaning routine, so if it does, that's pretty good. It's a universal fitment for sort of 2D, those are the flat visors. And I did wonder if something like this would have been a good purchase back in the days when I was a year-round courier, because this time of the year you're wiping the visor to clean it, of course, to see where you're going. Probably illegal on the road, actually. But if they're reasonably robust and you are an off-road rider, £45 for a pack of 3 doesn't actually sound too bad to me. Okay, so if you're looking for a last-minute biking Christmas present, how about this set of 3 Atlas packing cubes? This is just one of them. and they're designed to help you organise your kit when you're loading up your luggage. Now, I started using similar products quite late actually, and I have noticed they are make it a lot easier to compress clothes and pack generally. I had to use them taking my riding kit and everything else to New Zealand because obviously space was at a bit of a premium. And they also, of course, help you separate what you've worn from clean items when you're actually on the move. Excuse me. Each cube, they come in 2, 3, and 4 litre sizes. They come with a handle and a wide zipped opening. I'm still getting over a cold here. They're made from a durable 300D ripstop polyester. Now, 2 comments. You get a similar pack of 3 clothes organisers for £5 at IKEA. And that does make Oxford's recommended price of £29.99 a little bit steep. Being a pedant, none of them are actually cubes either. Now, KTM and their sub-brand Husqvarna, they have recalled their model year 390 Duke. It's 2024 to 2026. And all the other variants, the Enduro R, the SMCR, the Adventure R, and the Adventure X, to fix an issue involving low speed and off-road stalling. Husky's 401 models, they're powered by the same engine, so they've been recalled as well. The updated ECU will reduce the risk of stalling and also apparently improves low-end torque. So I wonder how they manage that without impacting emissions. Now, talking of KTM, you'll probably remember that in the middle of all their financial difficulties, they offloaded their controlling stake in MV Agusta. And it seems that with their new freedom, the formerly premium price brand is actually looking to change their strategies. MV Agusta's CEO, Luca Martin, he's reported to have said, "I don't want to define ourselves as luxury, because at the end of the day, I don't really believe that luxury exists in motorcycles." And he mentioned that their target brands are Ducati, KTM, and Triumph in Europe. There's an updated Euro 5 Plus compliant version of the Brutale 800 Triple, and that's now priced at €12,600. That's around £11,000, and that drops it in at over €3,000 less than Ducati's Street Fighter V2 base model, and it's just over £1,000 more expensive than the base model MT9 from Yamaha. Now, BBM, they say that their new electric motorcycle, the Hiro, can charge from empty to 80% in just 15 minutes, effectively the time it would take you to stop for a coffee and a pastry. And they say the secret is running a 12.96 kilowatt hour battery with 360 volt very high charge rate cells. And they say that you can add 60 miles of range in 9 minutes on the very fastest chargers. That, of course, does mean finding a very fast charger. There are just 160,000 DC fast chargers across the whole of Europe. An 80% charge at home, they say, takes 78 minutes on a Type 2 wall box and almost 3 hours on a normal plug, which I think sounds a little unlikely. I'm sure charging times for other bikes on a wall plug is much, much longer. I don't know, maybe the controlling software is different. Anyway, whatever. As for the bike, it's said to put out over 90 horsepower, 110 pound-feet of torque, but as usual, it gets regenerative braking, but the result is just 137 miles of riding at urban speeds. Now, that's urban speed, so it's going to drop significantly down to around a third of that, I would have thought, if you're starting to use anything like the bike's full performance. Well under 100 miles, I would have thought would have been a more typical range. Anyway, the bike gets Brembo's ABS, digital torque control in case you have difficulty twisting the throttle, and even gets plant-based bodywork to reduce its CO2 footprint. So I just hope that's better than the sort of cardboard fascias of the Soviet era cars. Price, well, it's firmly in zero territory. If it does arrive in the UK, it's expected to be somewhere around £18,000. Excuse me. But there is just one hitch. They haven't built one yet. As you probably noticed, the photo is one of those renders. They haven't actually produced a customer bike. They don't expect, in fact, to produce customer bikes in volume until 2027. So I'm not keeping my fingers crossed, but at least the styling is sort of vaguely in the direction of a conventional motorcycle. Okay, so let's have a quick look at another conventional motorcycle. One does have a petrol engine. And this is by Phelon Moore. Now, they were the firm behind the big sloper Panthers. And they're back after they disappeared in the 1960s, though not back in Yorkshire. The name rights were bought in 2022 by a group of European and American investors, and the machines are supposedly designed in Italy, manufactured in China. There are a pair of Panthers in the range, but they bear zero resemblance to those huge old single-cylinder engines of the past. The current Panther is actually a belt-driven 573 V-twin custom, gets a low seat. The C version gets feet-forward controls with footboards. You get mid-ape bars and a tall wall tyre pair. The S gets forward pegs, low pullback bars and conventional tyres, plus a lot less chrome as well. There's also an adventure tourer, the Cape Town. That's based around a 693cc parallel twin. The S gets alloy wheels, the X gets spoked, and there's a bi-Pininfarina version too, which gets a full load of luggage boxes. The Panthets, a ghastly name, sounds like a sort of 60s all-girl group. They're a range of scooters, two styles. They are in 125 and they are in 300 capacity, so 4 bikes in total. And the latest machine is the one that you can see in the picture. This is the Brighton. There's a pair of these, Formula Naked 125, and there's this 550 Roadster twin, which is double 6. This is a 550cc liquid cooled parallel twin, puts out around 60 horsepower, takes straight out of the usual drawer of bolt-on bits, ABS, traction control, TFT dash with smartphone connectivity, with a full tank of fuel, which is 20 litres, so quite a big tank. The full-on weight is 204 kilograms, 450 pounds, which actually isn't too bad. Looks, I'll leave that to you to decide, but I really do dislike the fact it's got a Union Jack decal on it. It's due for a mid-2026 launch, and there's apparently a scrambler version arriving too. Now, another bike, a brand sold, bought, and relaunched is Moto Morini, now owned by Zongshen. The new 3.5 Sport was unveiled last year. Quite a nice looking little bike, actually, with a V-twin engine. 50 years to the day, apparently, after the 70s original first appeared. Now, if the 3.5 Morini had some claims to being iconic, the same could hardly be said about their Kanguro, which was a sort of a rather uncomfortable melding of the aging pushrod V-twin motor into a trail bike chassis in the 80s, not long before the factory folded, if my memory serves. Anyway, the Kanguro is back. These are the bikes, but rather to my surprise, given the name, it doesn't get the V-twin engine, but it does get a 300cc 33 horsepower single cylinder. The base model, that's the one on the left with the high mudguard and the short screen. The rally model has a higher screen and a conventional mudguard, and that's on the right. Moto Morini are also launching a new Casaro GT and a Rumble bobber model, which is based on the 350V. They were also revealed at EICMA, although I would say relevance to UK buyers remains in doubt, since the franchise is being dropped by the importer at the end of this year. Now, one more bike to look at, and I'll give you a zoom in picture on this one, actually, because it is actually quite interesting. It comes from the rather unfortunately named Chinese brand of Benda. This is their P51 hybrid boxer. Now, it's certainly something unusual, maybe even revolutionary. It's a hybrid drive motorcycle, combines a small boxer twin engine with electric power. The liquid-cooled double overhead cam 250 twin cylinder ICE engine is backed up by an electric motor, which together delivers a combined output of around 62 horsepower, 46 kilowatts, and around 100 newton meters of torque. Now, Benda claims that the P51 can accelerate 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.7 seconds when running on the hybrid setup, considerably quicker than the average 250, of course. You can also run it on the ICE motor alone, or just use the electric motor if you're in a sort of clean air zone in city. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that by using the opposed twin, an engine which is naturally wide but low, the electric motor and the battery can be tucked under the engine unit itself. If you look closely, you'll see that down at the bottom here, that's where the battery sits, whereas the motor sits just under there. So it's quite a clever use, quite clever thinking, in my opinion. The exhaust, which you may be looking for, that actually exits just under the seat up here. There's no foot gear shift, so that saves the gearbox as well, I suspect, because Benda uses what it calls direct drive auto transmission. Now, even with the ICE and electric powertrains, the bike has an aluminium swinging arm, single-sided swing arm rather, aluminium frame. It's just 175 to 178 kilograms ready to roll. So honestly, if anybody still believes that all the Chinese can do is copy everyone else, I think that one glance at this particular bike shows just how silly that particular myth. Right now, it's just a concept machine, but it is certainly intriguing looking. Right, I have some comments here. The sound level on the coffee subscribe clip is very low compared with the rest of your volume. Okay, I probably got the mic volume up too high, then it can be a bit difficult to balance that. Thanks for that, Nick. I'll have a look at that. Kevin says, good to see positive action against high-powered e-bikes. I've got more on that story next week, actually. And Kevin says he's had a heavy cold flu for 5 weeks and only just going. The flu season is nasty this year. And Kevin says, in terms of aesthetics, I would rather have seen the MV Agusta 800 Brutale than the relatively unheard of machines. Well, yeah, but it's because they're relatively unheard of. That's why I show them to you. You can go and see the Brutale pretty much anywhere you like. Anyway, got another story from MV for next week. 5-cylinder engine. I'll say no more. Don't want to spoil next week's show. Right. Okay. So into the final element of today's show, and that is the in-depth part, where I look at something with a little more a closer examination. So today's question: what on earth is a vegan-friendly tire? I mean, tires are tires, aren't they? They're made of rubber, made in a mold. Well, yes and no, apparently, because this particular headline jumped out at me last month, and I've been waiting to run this story. Here it is. Vegan friendly. What on earth does that mean in the context of a tire, and what is traction skin technology? Well, traction skin's the easy one, so let's get that out of the way first. It is a manufacturing process, and it's basically an innovation from Continental. They say they create a micro rough tread surface by using a specially coated mold that avoids the need for traditional release agents. And they say the aim is to avoid the break-in needed for a brand new tire. Now, I do actually recall getting a pair of new tires fitted at lunchtime and pulling out from the tire fitters with one of our instructors going the other way with his gaggle of trainees with him. And I gave it a little bit too much lean, a little bit too much throttle, a little too soon. And the tire was still slick from the mold. And I very nearly fell off right in front of them, which wasn't clever. Continental still advise, incidentally, extreme lean angles, hard braking or full throttle immediately after fitting. Now, whether reducing the need for the mold release agents makes the tire grippier or not, it does make the production process rather cleaner. But whether the tires are vegan seems to be a little bit more complicated than it might be. Now, tires use a compound called stearic acid in their rubber compound. Now, this helps with the flexibility, it helps with the shape retention of the tire, and it helps with grip. And it can be sourced from animal fats, hence non-vegan tires. But it could be made from other plant oils. And Continental say they actually strive to minimize the use of ingredients that are of animal origin and use as many plant-based ingredients as possible. But it says the extent to which animal ingredients are used varies, so the products cannot always be described as vegan. Now, the company is also keen to emphasize their attempts to use sustainable materials. They use recycled bottles. They use rice husk silica. Yet, believe it or not, plants actually do concentrate silica into their leaves. If you ever rub a leaf and it feels rough to the touch, that is silica, tiny grains of silica on the surface of the leaf. Having a biology degree does help sometimes. And they use synthetic rubbers, of course, from bio or what they call circular sources, so renewable. So the push towards renewable, recycled, bio-based materials, it reduces the proportions of animal-derived ingredients. But vegan, probably unlikely, unless the tire model actually says animal-free. And then you can use your bike and feel that you are helping the world. So some Continental tires are vegan friendly for sure. Whether any are fully vegan, I do not know. But anyway, I thought it was an interesting little snippet for today. Anyway, so just before I go and wrap up the show, oh, that was the wrong graphic. I didn't want that up. Anyway, never mind. Quick reminder that my latest book is now available in ebook format. I'm hoping to get the paperback out fairly soon. It's called Crash Scene Junction, and it's a very short book, under 70 pages, because I want it to be read. It's inexpensive, so people actually buy it. Because it tackles the most common crash of all, the sorry mate I didn't see you smidsy collision between the driver and the rider at an intersection. So it takes science to explain how they happen. It explains what riders can do to reduce to spot the threat, and absolutely crucially, what actions we can take to reduce the risk too. Now, reading the book can't prevent a smidsy, but it will go a long way towards helping you understand the crash, and then you can be ready to avoid or evade the collision when the situation develops in front of you. And keep an eye open for the follow-up volume, Crash Scene Corner, which is sort of cast in the same mold, as it were, but it looks at corners, obviously. So that's it today. Thanks to everybody who's looked in, either live or on catch up. You've been watching ELEVENSES. Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and make a date to join me for the next show, where we'll have another roundup of news, views, and tips on biking. And if you are out there enjoying the ride on your bike today, please make sure you stay shiny side up. I'll see you next time.